With independent living growing across the country, the growth of the movement was being sustained in certain significant ways.
You started to see the beginning of the formation of Nickel. There was a recognition that there needed to be a national organization that could not only help all of the existing centers work more effectively together, but also to be able to advocate for the need for more funding for more centers, but then to also become more of a voice for the grassroots movement that would be looking at issues like implementation of 504, and at that point it wasn't called ADA, but the need to get federal legislation that prohibited discrimination against disabled people in the private sector, and to look at things like personal assistance services, and basically to look at what needed to be done to continue to remove barriers. So I think, then you see the development of the 10 centers, you see states putting money into development of more independent living centers. I think, the Paraquat Center, which had started earlier also in St. Louis. I think Access Living certainly was a very important model because it came from, it was started at a rehab program and moved from a rehab program into being, a freestanding, disabled-controlled organization. To me, Access Living is a very interesting program to look at because they came from a well-endowed rehab center, and I think they didn't come as grassrootsy. And I think the benefit for that was, it was a very unique situation because of Henry Betts. I mean, Henry was very supportive of disability rights and believed that, this organization should be spawned off from the rehab center. But it also meant that they had contacts with people who had money and influence, and I think it gave Access Living a level of legitimacy earlier on than many of the other programs got. And I think, the formation of Nickel was a very important development in the life of an evolution of the disability rights independent living movement, or the independent living disability rights movement. They had a strong ILRU, and they were doing research, and they were, providing different kinds of supports to programs around the country. And Lex certainly, and Peg Nosek and those people down there were very involved. I think what you saw was, as centers were being created, they began to be able to deal with some of the very fundamental local problems. Issues like curb cuts, things that were very, if curb cuts didn't become a reality in communities, people couldn't get across streets. Looking at issues affecting, blind people, deaf people, and even the formation of those coalitions. I mean, in Berkeley, as we expanded to bring the deaf community in, that was another whole struggle because there was a deaf organization. They felt that what we were doing was inappropriate. We set up a committee of deaf people to help us look at what they wanted and what we could do in order to let the deaf community itself decide whether or not they wanted services from the center.